Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Escoffier has arrived in Genshin Impact version 5.6, and with her release, we have her second playable chef. Does Escoffier live up to our expectations of chefs being the most broken occupation in Genshin Impact? Well, we'll take a look at what kind of damage and support a Constellation Zero Escoffier can dish out, with a variety of different utensils. Likely inspired by famous chefs such as Gordon Ramsay, Escoffier is a short-tempered girl who even does that thing that chefs do. Escoffier is the long-awaited savior of the cryo element. For, frankly, far too long, cryo has been frozen in the meta, being unable to take advantage of one of its strongest traits, freeze, since that doesn't work against most bosses. Fortunately, Escoffier is looking to address some of the shortcomings of such freeze-related teams with her kit tailor-made for, well, a freeze-related team. My Escoffier is using the 4-piece Golden Troop set, which effectively provides 70% skill damage to Escoffier. For her weapons, she'll be using the Missive Wind Spear, the Deathmatch Refinement 5, the Phonius Lance, and her signature fork, Symphonists of Sense. She is, of course, at Constellation Zero, and her talents are at 7, 10, and 10. Let's watch her expertly prepare our salad friend with her basic attacks, kitchen skills. Unfortunately, Escoffier wasn't able to cut through the salad, let alone toss the salad. These basic attacks are largely unremarkable, except for their animations, which are floppily fantastic as she swings her polearm with her tail, with expertise and a unique charged attack. Then we have the main course of her kit, her elemental skill, low temperature cooking. Her elemental skill summons an autonomous cloche, which attacks the enemy every second and lasts for a stellar 20 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. On cast, the initial hit generates, I believe, 4 particles, and has an every other hit ICD, aka it applies cryo every other hit. It has a very small AoE, so it's effectively single target, and it does have pretty good range. Very impressively, it hits the enemy 20 to 21 times, assuming 20 hits. This is 4,320% attack scaling of cloche chomping tick damage. To put this into perspective, Ayaka's burst deals 4,144%. Anyway, the most important part of Escoffier's skill is that it deals an instance of Usha damage. Okay, the actual most important part of her skill is tied to her passive, which enemies hit by her skill have their cryo and hydro resistances shredded based on how many cryo and hydro characters are on the team. With 1, 2, 3, and 4 cryo and hydro characters on the team respectively, her skill shreds hydro and cryo resistances by 5, 10, 15, and 55%. So yeah, this leads to a big jump in resistance shred, going from 3 to 4 hydro and cryo characters. Another great perk about her skill is that it works against enemies who oftentimes Viridescent Veneer doesn't work against, like the Hydro Tulpa, who cannot have cryo applied to them. Also, it's great against multi-wave content, as the cloche will continue to attack newly spawned enemies. So taking a quick look at this clip, we can see that just Ayaka is doing 15,915 damage with the main tick of her elemental burst, and once you add an Escoffier in a team with 4 Hydro and Cryo characters, so 55% additional resistance shred, now Ayaka's burst is doing 36.1% more damage from the resistance shred alone. And then if we add in Escoffier's signature fork, now Ayaka is doing 52.4% more damage. Clearly we can see that Escoffier is a great buffer for cryo teammates and cryo characters. Up next in our 3-course meal, we have Escoffier's Elemental Burst Scoring Cuts. Scoring cuts deals a respectable amount of initial cryo damage and also heals the entire party. With this current Missive Wind Spear build, it heals the whole party for 9,621. And thanks to her passive providing an additional 9 follow-up healing ticks for the on-field character every second, this is a pretty solid amount of healing. Importantly, both Escoffier's damage and healing scale off of her attack stat. While not enough healing to typically top up HP scaling characters, this is generally enough to top up attack scaling characters and is a very solid amount of healing and usually good enough for Furina teams as well. So yeah, let's take a look at her full kit in action. Escoffier is incredibly smooth and convenient to use. Just press E, then Q, and then swap off. Yep, in today's day and age, a buffer and healer is able to single cycle the Wriothesley while also being predominantly off-field. Frankly, if you told me this would be the case a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are with Escoffier in 2025. And one last thing about Escoffier, which I almost forgot, is her cooking passive. Okay, I have a very important question. Can we use Escoffier's hold elemental skill in combat? Oh, yes we can. Yes we can. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Can the Hydrotulpa fill it up? No, it looks like only my characters can. Looks like only my characters can. Oh my gosh. Okay, come on, come on. Come on, let's do some cooking. Let's do some cooking during combat. In total, I got 8 food items after a life and death duel with the Hydrotulpa. And here are the various food items that I got with a couple dupes here and there. The most important one being the last one, the Gilded Hull. After so many years, we finally power crept the starting food in the game, with this one providing 372 attack and 24% crit damage. So we now have a new best in slot nuke showcase food. Anyway, this cooking passive, which you activate by holding the elemental skill button, resets every Monday. I've got a quick clip for you all of me comparing some of Escoffier's more free-to-play-ish, friendly-ish weapon options, with the Missive Wind Spear being the baseline, and then the Deathmatch and the Favonius Lance, as well as her signature fork on the far right. And we can see that the damage differences are quite significant, and unfortunately when it comes to fully free-to-play friendly options, it is a bit rough for her, because really she only has the Missive Wind Spear as well as the Favonius Lance off the top of my head, and both of them, you know, they don't do a ton of damage, although they are perfectly usable in their own right. And on the other hand, unfortunately, the Deathmatch makes it very difficult to optimally build Escoffier, especially if you have some decent Golden Troop artifacts with both a lot of crit rate, a lot of crit damage. No, you will over crit with the Deathmatch, so you better hope to have a ton of pieces with a bunch of crit damage and a bunch of attack percent in order to make the Deathmatch actually worth it by a significant margin over something like the Missive Wind Spear. And then up next we have the Favonius, which is pretty much just every pole arm support character just uses this thing, and for good reason. It provides a ton of energy for the team, and overall, if you don't care too much about losing some damage for Escoffier, then the Favonius Lance is always a solid go-to option. And lastly, we have her signature sport, the Symphonist of Scents. So this being an unwashed, smelly fork aside, this thing basically just increases her attack and crit damage by a ton, and most importantly provides a 32% attack buff at Refinement 1 for her teammates and for her party. The attack buff to the entire party only lasts for 3 seconds because of the way that, you know, the 3-second duration works, but for the main on-field character, they will have much better uptime for the buff on this weapon. Let's take a look at some team showcases for Escoffier, and we're going to start off with a freeze-to-play friendly team, and in this case we are only going to be using a bunch of 4-star characters and 4-star weapons on this team. And I gotta be completely honest, when it comes to the 4-star character selection options, I actually feel like Escoffier is pretty limited, and they're not really known for doing, you know, a ton of damage themselves. They're more enablers of reactions and other stuff. But a lot of you guys are going to be really curious about Neuvillette, and this is kind of the reality of the situation. Keep in mind, this is for my Neuvillette. My Neuvillette is at Constellation 6. Refinement 5. And pretty much this showcase is going to be extremely different for pretty much everyone's Neuvillette, because we're all over the place when it comes to Neuvillette. A ton of us have Constellation 1, a ton of us have him at Constellation 0. Some of us are using the prototype Amber, others are using the signature weapon. And finally, some are whales like myself. And when it comes to this, if your Neuvillette does a ton of personal damage, sacrificing the 3rd Draconic stack loses you a lot of damage on Neuvillette. And both of these teams are indeed using Citlali. So Citlali is not kind of the missing variable here. And Escoffier, well, you know, she has to be on a team of 4 Cryo and Hydro in order to take advantage of her 55% resistance shred. We can see Neuvillette is doing a lot less damage. And yeah, so basically, if your Neuvillette doesn't really do that much damage, then using Escoffier with Neuvillette is actually worth it. However, if your Neuvillette, you know, actually does a lot of damage like mine is, obviously the damage loss is going to be really big, and Escoffier's personal damage can't really compensate for the amount of damage loss that Neuvillette suffers. So yeah, in some situations, I would say Escoffier is more of a side grade for Neuvillette than necessarily an upgrade, and in many situations with a more invested Neuvillette, she is going to be a downgrade for Neuvillette teams. Now, the next team is pretty funny. It's the wheelchair team, and the wheelchair team is great because you can slap in any Hydro, any Cryo character, in this case Ayato's slot, because the wheelchair, which consists of Escoffier, Furina, plus a 3rd character perhaps like Yelan, is a great choice for this because they all do incredible off-field damage, and the 3 of them together will just carry literally anyone that's Hydro or Cryo you know, to victory. And whether you replace Ayato with Child or heck even Barbara, it's not going to make a huge difference, although Ayato does do more damage than Barbara. But you get my point. This is the wheelchair team. It's great for carrying weaker Hydra and Cryo characters. Now, another team is the Ayaka team, and probably likely the biggest glow up out of them all. And Ayaka here strongly benefits from Shenhe as well, so you can definitely run Shenhe with this team, which is absolutely fantastic. And Shenhe's quills buff Ayaka's damage by a lot, and we can see here, obviously with my Constellation 6 characters, the Conga mode is not going to survive a full rotation. So yeah, also please take these showcases with a giant grain of salt. These are proof of concept showcases only, because my character and account is all over the place. Now, the next team is a Wriothesley team, and what's great about using Wriothesley with us as Escoffier is not only do you have more French people in your team, well, you now also freeze the enemy, especially against frozen enemies. This makes it much, well, even easier to use Wriothesley in all honesty. And, you know, with your enemies frozen, well, they're not going to be doing much to you. And another great thing about this is that you don't have to worry about reactions, because oftentimes with Wriothesley, if you kind of mess up your melt reaction, then you're a bit SOL and stuff like that. But in this case, this team is super easy to use. I'm not going to say it's better than his melt teams, because, you know, melt scaling is absolutely insane with elemental mastery factored in. However, regardless, this is still going to be a very comfortable and usable Wriothesley team. Now, this next Escoffier team shifts back to a more free-to-play friendly team, and this time it's going to be a free-to-play friendly melt team. And this team is a lot of fun because you can just use, you know, go for the melt on Escoffier's kit, and she actually has some pretty decent multipliers, and she's able to melt, you know, about half of her elemental skill damage, which she actually ends up doing some pretty respectable melts here, all things considered. And this team actually did manage to single cycle the Dorito friend. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at a very quick 4-star only team run that I did in Abyss 12. All right, let's go ahead and try this team out against the top half of Abyss 12. And the reason why I'm doing the top half instead of the bottom half is because the bottom half favors Escoffier just, like, let's be real, way too much. Way too much, because that thing is so goofy with the crazy amount of skill damage that it provides. And specifically, not just skill damage, but cryo skill damage. So literally just made for Escoffier here. And there we go. We are indeed doing some damage, and I've realized that the weapon choice on Escoffier here isn't the best, because we have the Missive Wind Spear, and this team cannot perform any reactions outside of, well, against the Hydrotulpa, right? Because the Hydrotulpa gives us this free reactions, and that is actually pretty convenient. How? In that Escoffier's thingy will actually auto-target those little dudes there. And yeah, considering that this actually... considering this 4-star only team, I'm actually going to conserve energy. Alright, here we go, here we go. So, go ahead and do all of our stuff here. Do a few attacks there. We can start funneling some energy. And yeah, this thing is very, very durable and has very high resistances as well. And okay, that change in camera angle definitely confused me a little bit. But yeah, just relying on pure raw multipliers there. Okay, so we run into this one. 45 degrees. Oh, we did it! Okay, okay, come on, break it, break it. Yo, let's go, let's go. Alright, alright, alright. Time for some big damage. Big damage. Here we go. Kind of big damage. Yeah, without the reactions and stuff, especially on a 4-star only team, this doesn't feel all that crazy. Like, it feels okay, right? But with a 4-star only team here with no reactions, it does look like we might struggle to actually get the 3 stars necessary, which I'm actually a bit surprised. I'm actually a bit surprised here. But, however, I'm not too surprised because Escoffier definitely seemed like a premium character, like a premium team, right? Like, you're going to need a lot of the 5 stars, Furina in particular being by far her best teammate. So here we go, we're going to have to do this trick again. Oh, let's go! Let's go! I've gotten a lot better at that. Options are pretty scuffed when it comes to that. So yeah, pretty interesting flaw slash weakness in her kit. But anyway, enough yapping about that. Let's go ahead and try this. Now, perhaps if I use like some battle pass weapons and things like that, I think we could probably do it. Like, maybe with a death match, we'd be able to, you know, improve those times a lot. Or maybe if we actually replace Chongyun, because I'm not sure he's actually helping that much. Because yeah, the cryo infusion and reduced cooldowns. Excuse me. But yeah, here we go. I mainly just... The survivability that Escoffier's healing provides is absolutely fantastic. Because, like, I'm just face tanking. I'm not even dodging anything. I'm just, you know, worrying about cooldowns more so than anything else. Because, bam! Everyone is topped up just like that. Easy peasy. So, yeah, first try, 8:30 clear time with this Escoffier 4-star only team for that part of the Abyss. And yeah, in terms of 4-star only options, I will say Escoffier doesn't have the best choices. However, with that being said, you know, obviously when it comes to her more premium teams, she is going to be an absolutely insane option. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover every team she's usable in, like for Kanish Burning and tons of other freeze variations, but hopefully this gave you a decent introduction to Escoffier and what she can provide for your account. To put it simply, if you're a freeze enthusiast and some of your favorite characters are Ayaka and Shenhe, then Escoffier is the perfect character to revive them from the dead. Not only that, but her synergy with Furina is nearly perfect, both buffing Furina's damage as well as providing the full party heal for Furina's fanfare. There is one issue, in my opinion, with Escoffier, in that if you don't have other premium 5-star characters like Furina, Ayaka, Wriothesley, Yelan, etc., then she doesn't have many great options to buff in terms of 4-star characters and weaker Hydro characters like Ayato. Overall, Escoffier feels like an incredible character for those that want to improve their freeze and cryo and hydro related teams, and for those that already have these other great 5-star characters. Let me know what you think about Escoffier down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.